When people imagine the early era of illegal whiskey production, they likely visualize a weathered and tough mountain dweller carefully overseeing a copper still under moonlight. Or they conjure images of someone in a modified vehicle speeding along Thunder Road carrying a load of illegal spirits. Indeed, this was a perilous and hazardous profession that resulted in numerous individuals meeting their end or being imprisoned. The least likely candidate you'd imagine running an illegal liquor enterprise would be a female. However, among the most infamous bootleggers in history was one of the fiercest women to ever inhabit these Appalachian highlands. Indeed, men trembled before her, and law enforcement was powerless against her. She reigned as Appalachia's moonshine monarch, and this is her remarkable, authentic tale. Mahala Mullins entered the world in 1824 in the vicinity of Sneedville, Tennessee. During her initial years, her household flourished and experienced a comfortable existence in this distant, secluded region. Nevertheless, around the 1830s, transformative forces started sweeping through these highlands. Initially came the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which caused a substantial surge in white settlers seeking fresh territory for settlement. Several years following, in 1834, Tennessee enacted multiple new regulations that created additional obstacles for non-white individuals to possess property. Mahala's household found itself directly impacted by these new transformations, primarily because they weren't classified as black, white, or Native American. They belonged to the Melungeon people, an enigmatic population occasionally called Appalachia's Lost Tribe, and they puzzled researchers and academics for decades, continuing to the present day. Their physical characteristics included dark-colored hair and complexion combined with blue eyes and a distinctive protrusion on their skull's rear. Even now, nobody definitively understands precisely where these unusual people originated or their arrival method in these mountains. Certain individuals have theorized they descended from Portuguese sailors who survived shipwrecks, whereas others asserted they were displaced settlers from the Outer Banks region. Additional scholars propose they represented a blended heritage of Native American and African ancestry, or perhaps Mediterranean origins. Unconventional hypotheses have surfaced, claiming these people's origins trace back to Hernando de Soto's journey through these highlands in 1540. Meanwhile, others argue they could descend from Captain Juan Pardo, who led 125 Spanish soldiers in 1567, and these soldiers presumably married Native American women. As previously stated, nobody genuinely comprehends their arrival in this compact Appalachian mountain region. One certainty exists. Following these new white settlers' enactment of these new regulations, the Melungeons suddenly possessed no legitimate claims to the territory they had occupied and cultivated for multiple generations, forcing them to withdraw into the remote wilderness high upon mountain peaks as social outcasts in this transformed community. Consequently, Mahala spent her complete existence restricted to a 3-mile territory atop a mountain called Newman's Ridge. This harsh existence forged Mahala into an extraordinarily resilient individual. She labored equally vigorously or more intensely than her brothers and sisters during her upbringing, and during this period, community members started calling her Big Haley. She possessed a large-framed physique with a robust build. No female would venture to challenge her, and upon reaching adolescence, she exceeded 300 pounds of pure muscular strength. Suddenly, few males possessed sufficient courage to oppose her either. Liege, and claims that whenever she seated herself for a modest meal, consuming an entire swine was routine for her. Furthermore, she could extract a firmly rooted pine tree directly from the earth using just one hand, and could shatter a 2-inch oak plank with her unprotected fist. Community members claimed she could grasp her arm and could curve a 4-inch iron pry bar with identical ease that any ordinary woman might fold a silk band. In simple terms, Big Haley would have been an appropriate rival for Paul Bunyan, the mythological Hercules of American logging camps. On one occasion, when Big Haley reached 17 years of age, she participated in a politician's campaign gathering. During that period, these occasions adopted a festival-type environment to attract the mountain population. They featured various strongman competitions to identify the region's most powerful individual. Mahala chose to participate in the male wrestling tournament, competing with a fierce mountain combat technique that would cause any experienced fighter to reconsider entering the arena against her. She systematically defeated every male who ventured to compete. After no additional challengers remained vertical, she commenced battling against 2 males simultaneously, where she perpetuated the destruction. She was an immense woman physically. Her remarkable strength demonstrations attracted the attention of an individual named Johnny Mullins, whom everyone recognized as skinny since he merely weighed 100 pounds. In an ironic reversal, the diminutive man captured the massive woman's affection, and the improbable romantic pair soon wed. Mahala would dedicate the subsequent 19 years experiencing pregnancy through 20 conceptions. Peculiarly, as her offspring increased, Big Haley's size expanded. 400 pounds, then 500, then 600 pounds. Numerous community members speculated she weighed considerably more since nobody knew with certainty, but eventually she earned recognition as Tennessee's most massive woman. Throughout the entire state, with numerous dependents requiring sustenance and her spouse Skinny being insufficiently strong to execute demanding physical work in timber operations, Big Haley understood she needed to assume responsibility personally. Residing elevated upon the isolated Newman's Ridge provided certain benefits for Big Haley's household. Her dwelling was positioned at the ridge's absolute summit. The nearest railway station was approximately 16 miles distant, and no pathways existed leading to the mountain's peak. Reaching the mountain's summit required ascending 3 precipitous miles that were almost perpendicular. Indeed, any potential visitor or stranger would essentially need to perform rock climbing to reach the dwelling. Although the ground was excessively rocky for cultivating many agricultural products, the apple and peach orchards flourished abundantly across countless magnificent groves on the mountain. Big Haley recognized that her extensive household couldn't possibly consume the massive annual production of apples and peaches, and transporting them downward to the marketplace was impossible. However, permitting such abundant apples to spoil would constitute genuine wastefulness, so she commenced producing her distinctive formula, a brandy-based moonshine. Despite Big Haley existing considerably before the 1920s Prohibition era, numerous Appalachian states had already commenced prohibiting whiskey and moonshine manufacturing as early as the 1850s, mandating substantial penalties ranging from $10 to several $100s or imprisonment. Nevertheless, Big Haley's dwelling was sufficiently isolated that she maintained her profession for considerable duration with limited law enforcement interference. Despite being prohibited, alcohol started generating additional difficulties for Big Haley's household. The mixture of being nurtured by an unruly mountain woman possessing an unlimited alcohol supply created an unstable situation that caused her offspring to mature as hot-tempered as their mother, and the maximum her father could accomplish was simply remain uninvolved. Her male offspring were excessive drinkers, and their moonshine consumption intensified their aggression. One male offspring perished when his firearm malfunctioned during a physical altercation while attempting to reload it. Another individual severed his throat and transported his corpse to a profound well and deposited him inside. Another sibling was fatally shot in central Sneedville during a gunfight with the sheriff, and apparently the household couldn't escape the brutality. One offspring traveled to Texas, and upon arrival there, he was subjected to lynching. During another notorious confrontation, Big Haley and multiple offspring engaged in a shootout with Confederate military personnel who had arrived to incinerate their dwelling during the Civil War. One offspring had his digit completely severed by gunfire, and another was wounded in the leg during the armed conflict. Furthermore, that wasn't everything. The household was recognized for attacking one another as well. Once, Big Haley's youngest offspring, Willie, engaged in a dispute with his relative Coy, and suddenly someone struck Coy across the head with a shotgun with such force that it dislodged his eye from the socket before he rapidly withdrew his .38 handgun and utilized his sole functional eye to aim and fatally shot someone. When information about Willie's death reached Big Haley, they delivered her his complete possessions, which included a complete bottle of moonshine. Big Haley examined it briefly, thinking it would be regrettable to permit it to spoil, deciding she would consume it personally. Indeed, describing violence as common pateb lace would constitute a tremendous understatement. Perhaps the most devastating tragedy for Big Haley's emotions occurred when her spouse died. By this period, she had grown so enormous with what community members termed the elephant ailment that she became restricted to her bed, where she remained propped continuously. She had her 3 offspring and her spouse interred directly in the property so she could be transported to the entrance to observe their burial ceremonies. Simply because Big Haley remained restricted to her dwelling didn't diminish her moonshine enterprise. Whereas most moonshine producers would dilute their merchandise by introducing water or alternative substances, Haley's spirits were completely 100% unadulterated, and information disseminated extensively regarding both its superior quality and its flavor. When she vends you a gallon of moonshine, you obtain a gallon of pure moonshine, not 2 quarts of moonshine combined with a quart of water and a quarter carbide thoroughly mixed and agitated before consumption. Community members commenced traveling to Newman's Ridge specifically to sample this renowned spirit. She maintained a barrel completely supplied directly beside her bed equipped with a spigot, and for 50 cents she would dispense you a cup immediately on location. Eventually, law enforcement intervention became inevitable to attempt shutting down the enterprise. Once the revenue agents ascended the precipitous mountain, they discovered that Big Haley was excessively massive. It would require 20 men to elevate her, and even then she was excessively large to pass through the dwelling's entrance. Furthermore, even if they had managed to extract her from the entrance, transporting her down the mountain was impossible. Repeatedly, the judicial system generated arrest warrants, only to have Big Haley ridicule them and declare, "Proceed ahead and apprehend me. Here I remain, absolutely culpable as always. I produced this spirits, and be certain that immediately after your departure I will manufacture additional." This sequence repeated continuously. The maximum law enforcement could accomplish was dismantling or confiscating equipment which her household would rapidly reconstruct. Exasperated, the county magistrate dispatched the county's most intimidating elite deputy to terminate her enterprise conclusively. Following the deputy's failure to apprehend her, the magistrate insisted on understanding why he hadn't arrested her and administered justice. To this, the disheartened lawman responded, "Well, Your Honor, she's apprehendable, but not transportable." Regardless of how many warrants or bounties were established, she remained unstoppable, and community members arrived from locations as distant as Europe to sample her mythical spirits. Ladies, folks, but not transportable. Consequently, Big Haley spent her complete existence producing spirits in the modest dwelling high atop Newman's Ridge, resembling a monarch surveying her extensive Appalachian domain. Her reputation had extended from coastline to coastline, southward into Mexico and northward into Canada, with community members undertaking the journey to her dwelling from worldwide locations. She never experienced arrest, and she manufactured illegal liquor until her death at 74 years of age. Currently, nobody understands precisely her death's cause, but the persistent legend suggests she was poisoned by an envious competing moonshiner. Even following death, community members didn't understand how to extract her from the dwelling. Actually, nobody knows definitively their method. Numerous community members assert they dismantled the chimney directly from the dwelling and extracted the corpse through the opening. Others claim they utilized her bed and employed the lumber to construct a coffin. Meanwhile, others maintain she was interred in a piano container. One certainty exists. However they extracted her, she was interred beside her spouse and her offspring directly there in the property. Indeed, even following death, she never descended from that mountain. Presently, over 200 years following Big Haley's death, community members remain captivated by her narrative, to such extent that during the year 2000, her dwelling was transported from Newman's Ridge section by section and reconstructed in Vardee Valley, Tennessee. Even currently, you can visit her dwelling, and during your visit, be certain to observe Newman's Ridge. Even possessing all our contemporary technology, there remain no pathways to the summit where the Appalachian Moonshine Monarch continues resting beneath the apple and peach orchards. They crazies.